Ladies and gentlemen, friends and family around the heckin' world, it is the bottom tier.
Woo!
Welcome back.
We're back.
We are back again, just like we promised. Friends, I am Greg.
I am Matt.
And we are
the bottom tier.
Really good to see you, Matt. Really
it's good to see you too,
today.
Greg. Good to see you. We've had a pretty, it's been a pretty packed week, I would say, in the life of flesh and blood, to be honest.
Yeah, a lot of stuff going on, a lot of things occurring.
Yeah.
So let's just go ahead and start this episode off right with our single most popular segment, friends. It's lessons learned.
Lessons learned. Yeah, I'll go ahead and kick it off, Greg.
Sweet. What do you got for us today, Matt?
This week, I guess my lesson learned is I learned how to play Kano a little bit.
Very nice.
A little bit. Yeah, wizards be hard is the lesson learned.
Wizards do be hard, Matt.
Yeah, it's interesting to there's a lot more pitch to be able to understand, and it's a little bit more thinky of, do I do this? Like, how do I build my deck and get the full effectiveness of the ability? And so I think the lesson learned is just understand your hero's ability so you can build around that more efficiently, especially with wizards. So that was kind of my big lesson learned this week.
And that's a great one. Wizards in particular are one of the trickier classes in Flesh and Blood, specifically because it becomes not two separate turns, it becomes one big hybrid turn for the most part. Because mostly with a wizard, you want to get the non-attacks in, you want to get the instants in. You want to play stuff as instants, so really you want to capitalize on the other person's turn.
Absolutely. I don't know how many times I blundered and wasn't able to pull off an instant because I decided to put cards that weren't really needed in a wizard deck. So, yeah.
Still thinking too much like a warrior there, Matt.
I was, yeah. I was like, I will wield this sword and this staff to destroy you, and it did not work out. So
Gandalf builds only work in the Lord of the Rings and Lord of the Rings inspired properties.
Yeah, you're right. I'm actually just practicing for the new Dynasty hero, which is definitely going to be a wizard warrior,
And I'm ready for that. I honestly, I think that would be a heck of a lot of fun. Right? Yeah. Okay, well, here's this 5 arcane damage thing, and then we'll have go again off of this thing, and then I'm going to attack you with an axe for 4 more damage.
Yeah, that'd be scary.
Right?
I hope it's true.
I really do too. Let's all write into LSS guys to get them to change their plans if they don't have this set already. The Emperor should straight up be a warrior wizard.
Warrior wizard, or just a rune blade,
or just a rune blade, which is
spellblade, which is rune blade. Yeah,
exactly.
What about you? What was your lesson learned this week?
Oh man, so the biggest thing for me is that ice sucks.
Ice sucks.
Ice sucks. I hate playing against ice element classes. For example, last night. I built a Bravo deck. Yeah. Really, the first time I've played Guardian seriously, I've poked around with it a little bit, but I'm sort of, this is the 9th part of our ongoing Greg doesn't know what the hell he's doing as far as heroes go thing. If you haven't checked that out in our last few episodes, guys, go and give those a listen. They're pretty good. But so I'm still playing around with stuff. So I tried out Bravo and pretty fun, pretty good. But I've had the bad fortune of playing a couple of Icelanders and an Oldhim here and there. And man, they keep hitting me with these frostbites. And frostbite just, infuriating.
It's not good for Guardians.
No.
Or any class really in general.
Really anything, because the sort of the prevailing strategy for building decks is to run a tight resource curve so you can maximize, the effectiveness of the cards that you're playing with a minimum of overpitch. Yeah. So you're really getting the most efficiency out of it. But then a frostbite comes in and it just blows your entire curve.
100%. Especially, I would say more specifically in commoner, but also that's what deck builds are kind of forced to do. I don't think Fi or Dramai would run as many blues as it wasn't for the threat of frostbite.
Oh, absolutely. You see almost 99% reds in those decks.
100%. Yeah. And so it's very 99%. No, 100%. That's how we say it. But no, it's frostbite is definitely interesting and interesting to build too. You really have to put thought into how you're going to be able to execute that and be able to kind of force people to mess up their turn. I remember when we played yesterday, kind of talking about Kano and Bravo, is you were able to do all the math. You had all the math ready. This is the perfect amount of pitch to be able to do something awesome. And then once you started doing like, I'm going to do this, and then you're like, I forgot about wizard instances. It like ruined the math.
It completely obliterated because at that point it was, okay, do I not arcane barrier and take all this damage and keep doing what I want to do with low health? Or do I arcane barrier, screw up my resource curve for this turn and have to basically just, pivot to this being a setup, get ready for like the next one maybe.
Yeah.
And then kind of like trying to keep in mind like preventing that arcane damage and factoring that into the math and everything. It's tricky.
Oh yeah. And so that's another lesson learned is like respect the wizard, respect it.
Respect the wizard. Respect any class that can do arcane damage to you.
Because wizard's really easy to disrespect because like you're like, oh, their health is lower, and it's like there's a reason why their health is lower.
Right, exactly. Because they can push 30 damage a turn with no problem.
Once you hit that, like it's no longer like once you hit 1 or 2 HP, you should probably start blocking on their turn. Like it's more like if I'm at 6 HP and it's my turn, I can die.
Easily.
And so I have to start really thinking about that. So like, yeah, respect the wizard. So that's another lesson learned, I would say, for both of us.
That's probably the bottom tier top tip for this week, guys. Respect the wizard.
Yep. Respect the wizard. Well, Greg, outside of lessons learned, a lot of stuff happened in the Flesh and Blood world. First things first, last week we had Kyle show up, talk about Azalea, and literally moments later, days, hours, someone got their first LL points for Azalea.
I went home that evening and, said hi to my boyfriend, pet the pets and everything, was getting dinner ready. My phone buzzes. I look down and it's a Twitter notification. Azalea just got her first LL points and here's the person doing it. And I just thought to myself, well, that's good timing.
It's great timing. Yeah, it was awesome. And I am stoked for Azalea to be able to make it. I watched a little bit of like the deck tech and I think it was just expertly played as how Azalea was able to get there.
Well crafted, and then the person playing it really knew the deck, knew the matchups, and could just execute on it. And I mean, that's the beautiful thing about this game is that it really tries to push more of, you don't need the biggest, fanciest, brightest cards or anything. You just need to know how your deck works, how it works in opposition to other decks, and you can pull something off.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so now that's basically every hero who has points now.
Almost, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing, the exclusion is in Blitz, there's quite a few still, like KO hasn't made it. Or
KO doesn't have anything. I don't think Data Doll has any. The merchants
but they're kind of more of the obscure.
The niche ones, the meme ones.
Yep.
Nobody on the planet is seriously running Genius What You Need.
I hope so. I hope Genius What You Need gets something soon, but we'll see.
One day I hope that like merchants and stuff get points. But realistically, I don't know, man.
Yeah, I don't know. The only weapon they can do is Talishar, but that actually leads to the next news is the winner of the calling in Singapore was, did you see this?
No, I didn't see this.
Okay.
This is brand new info.
Good. I was like, you're acting like you don't know. The winning of the calling in Singapore, if for CC, people were assuming was going to be, our Viscerais or Fies or Briars. It was Dash. Ha! Aggro Dash. And Aggro Dash was running Talishar. The Knife of Talishar.
Rocking the Talishar. Okay, interesting.
And I got to see the deck build for that, and it was very awesome. Like tons of T-bones, tons of really quick go-agains. Just go fast, aggro fast.
Move fast, hit hard.
Yep, and it won. It ended up winning the calling, and there were about 4 Briars that made it to the top 8. So it was a very interesting meta over there. Because people were like, where's the Viscerai? There really wasn't
like no Viscerai.
Yeah, there was like 4 Briars. I don't think
all Briars and a Dash. That's great.
One Fi made it with the untypical Fi build. It actually had combo cards in there and some snatch in there. So it was a very interesting like top 8 that made it. Again, showing that it's not really the cards that you're playing. It's just the person's thought process and putting it together and their ability to master matchups.
Find your deck, find the way it works for you, and then go and leverage it. Refine it as you go, make a couple of tweaks. But with any of like the best TCGs, the best ones allow you to really put your own input into the game.
Yeah.
It's not just, you have to play this particular card or you have to play this particular, deck setup. You got freedom. Go for it.
Yeah.
Have fun with it. Find out what works. A combo Fi hitting top 8, like, come on, man. Like, especially in the wake of the stubby ban and everything.
Yeah.
I think that is exactly the sort of thing that LSS was hoping to sort of foster with that particular move was, finding the unique and interesting ways to build that nobody had really come across yet.
Yeah.
Because they were also hyper-focused on,
doing 40 damage.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting because I do feel that plays huge into what's happening here in the next few days. We're recording this ahead of when you're actually listening to this. So probably happening now as you're listening is the Pro Tour in France. Mm-hmm. It was really kind of based off of like who won Singapore and kind of how it's going to shift what we see in France.
Yeah.
And so we're probably going to see a huge increase in dashes being played because it already proved to be a top level deck, but also proved that Briar is super valuable and maybe see some more interesting Fi builds. And so again, we see another huge momentum shift in this meta of like, hey, we still don't know what's great here, and we don't know what to really now go for, because usually people were deck building for the Viserai and deck building for Prism and it was deck building for high aggro, control, and Prism, making sure you have sideboard to be able to do all those things.
Exactly.
Now it's like, is Prism even like the important thing? Because Prism's been at 998 for so long now and hasn't been able to pull off the win because everyone else is able to really go into it pretty easily. And so it's interesting, like, will Prism be the winner? I really hope so. We have some people out there that are going to go out there and play Prism, but it's interesting to see what this Pro Tour is going to be and what's the mix up there for the meta.
It's just really a fascinating time for the game in general, with the LL bans, with the new sets and everything coming out. Everything has been shaken up to such a point that really there is no like single like S tier like hero or particular deck build. There are some that are really, really good. There are some that are pretty good. There are some that are okay, but nothing is really like so good it's dominant like your Starvos or whatnot.
Yeah.
And nothing really is so bad that it's completely, disregardable. Like Azalea is on the board. At this point, anything could happen.
Oh, for sure.
It's like wide open right now. So it's a fascinating time to be in this game, like for real, like to be tracking some of the pro stuff and some of the higher level events.
Yeah.
Because especially with the Singapore example, out of nowhere, somebody comes in and wins it with this thing that nobody expected. And so now that's going to affect things, as you were talking about. But the fact that somebody could come out of nowhere with something that nobody was expecting and not just do well, but take the entire thing, like that's a sign of a healthy meta.
Yeah.
That's a sign of a healthy game when you can figure out something that nobody else has and have it actually be viable and not just some janky garbage that people have probably like thought about before, but then decided wasn't consistent enough or viable enough or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited for the next few months and for Dynasty to see how that whether it sort of supplements where we are right now and keeps everything nice and open, or whether it comes up with a couple of things that really sort of push a particular hero or a particular class back into the spotlight.
Well, we're definitely gonna, with Dynasty, like, it's definitely going to serve, it seems like so far that we're still in full court, and I feel like it's probably still going to serve the Fi and the Dromai and Icelander hero that we just got, right? But I do think that we're going to, again, it's a supplemental, so we're going to see stuff for everyone.
Pretty much everybody, yeah.
And so it's going to be interesting on what's going to come out of that, and I'm really excited, and hopefully we don't see a Starvo treatment of anything, because I think LSS did a great thing by banning stubby hammers, actually, because if you think about it, it would be everyone running Fi, going as fast as possible.
Oh, 100%. It really turned out to be a pretty good move. Like, I was kind of on the fence about it when it first dropped, but now that things have shaken out a little bit, good call. Really solidly good
It kept the meta healthy. And,
exactly.
And, like, we can see it, too. Like, we've been playing a lot of Commoner here in our local meta area.
Yes, we have.
Stubby hammers isn't banned there, right? According to LSS. Well, we'll see that soon, probably. But Fi still being able to use that without even having access to Art of War and the Soaring Strike or whatever I always forget the name of it, but the Searing Flames.
Yeah.
Without having access to those, was still able to produce 25 damage in one turn.
Like, that happened last night.
Yeah. So that's insane. Like, that's without having access to that, and that's a big that's like, hey, we should probably, this can kill me in Commoner.
That is meta warping.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah. So I'm stoked for that ban, and I'm glad the meta is healthy, and I am excited to kind of see the cool builds that's coming out. And if we see Azalea get LL points at the Pro Tour, then
oh man,
I have no idea what's going to happen. That would be
the shakeup to end all shakeups.
I don't know if anyone would keep playing this game. That'd be insane. But yeah, so big news came out about those two things, and it's pretty cool to be able to kind of be playing this game now and being a part of that. So
it really is a good time to be a Flesh and Blood player.
Yeah,
like it's still relatively young, but really this is the moment.
Yeah.
If anybody out there listening right now has been kind of on the fence about it, you've been kind of dabbling in some of the content out there. It looks interesting, kind of fun, but you haven't really pulled the trigger yet.
Yeah.
Jump in. Right now is the best time. Pretty much everything is viable. You don't have to drop a ton of money to get a deck that you can do pretty well with. And just take a little time, learn the game, and see if it's something that you want to jump into and try some stuff out. Like, it's not, 6 months ago where you had to play Starvo where you lost. It's not, a year ago when it was all chain or maybe Prism at that point.
Yeah.
It's very wide open. It's highly dynamic. Like, things are changing all the time.
Yeah.
Different builds are coming up constantly. So really, jump in. Jump in. Don't be afraid. Go for it.
Yeah, and if you're someone who's just like, I want to follow the meta and I want to just get a deck that's already doing really great, this Dash deck that just won literally is one of the Dash is one of the cheaper heroes out there.
Oh, Dash is super. Like, really, the only expensive thing in a Dash deck is
some of the equipment,
like Tekla Foundry Heart and things like that. But still, a couple $100 and you have a top tier.
I would say it's about $250, and you have that same exact deck, and you're able to go out there. I mean, $250 could be steep for some people, but
objectively, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, but I mean,
compared to some of the other stuff, like I was looking at an Oldhim deck today that was like $900 or something.
Oh, for sure, 100%. And like, think about the pricing of buying a box, though. Like, it's like, I'm going to try to build it myself. Yeah, but in order to get all that stuff with all that stuff, you're going to end up spending $300 to $400 to try to pull all of that anyways. So it's actually just worth buying out the deck, It
really is. Like, I definitely, like, for me, I don't love buying singles as much as, I like to avoid it as much as possible. I prefer to have, that bulk so I can remain flexible with things.
Yeah.
But, I'm 5 or 6 boxes into it now. So I'm at the point where I'm like, well, I need this like one card. I don't want to go spend $85 or $90 on a box that I'm going to get, 95% of stuff that I don't need in order to get this one card that I need to finish this deck.
Yeah.
So, like, definitely, like, I advocate for a hybrid model. Pick up a few boxes, get your bulk in place. If you pull some spicy stuff, sweet, rock on. Go for it. Let the boxes decide where you're going to build initially. And then once you have a better feel for it, like especially for first starting out, and then once you have a better feel for it, then start picking up your singles, then start filling out some of the commons and stuff you don't have, then pick up, the specializations or the stuff from like Crucible or Arcane Rising that's hard to find these days.
Yeah.
On the singles market. Because for the most part, like a lot of it's going to be cheap.
Yeah. 100%. I definitely agree. Like the hybrid model is the way to go. And as you said, just buy a few boxes, especially if a new set comes out. Like when Dynasty comes out, I'll probably buy a case or a couple boxes.
Oh, I'm definitely picking up a couple boxes.
And
100%.
then just be like, cool, and go for a certain thing that I'm going for. But what's cool is I'll probably have cards that can go towards something else that I can build. Like I literally just built a Jeremiah CC deck. From the leftover Uprising stuff I had. I was like, oh, I actually have everything I need to buy or make a Dremai. The only thing I'm missing is the most important, or like the biggest expensive card is Phantasmal Footsteps. Yeah. But I feel more confident to go buy a single of that than try to buy like a billion Monarch boxes to try to pull.
Hope you get it.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then you're like 99% done with it. You only have like 1 or 2 pieces left to fill in.
I literally just have the Footsteps.
It's much more palatable to go out and buy one card you're looking for than it is for like, well, I'm short like 20 cards here. What do I do?
Yeah. It's so true. It's so true. Well, Greg, like this week, like we have all this news. We have the meta talk. We've previously talked about steeple cards in deck building, and we talked about finding your hero in Flesh and Blood. So what's the next step after that?
So, like, after you found your hero, after you've sort of worked out, your foundational cards and everything, then comes the refinement point. Like, no matter how good you are at the game, no matter how good you are at deck building, you're inevitably going to encounter something you didn't anticipate. And this is where, like, the beauty of things like sideboarding comes in. Because you can kind of build a deck out and then have some contingency plans for different things. Like, for example, the way that you fight somebody playing Bravo is much, much different than you would fight somebody playing Briar, for example. Just very different play styles based purely on the hero and the card pools available to them. So what works against Briar may not, will not be as effective against Bravo. So once you've got all of your basics sort of in place, then comes the actual, like, test it out, make a tweak, test it out again, make another tweak, and just kind of. It's midday, everybody. We're filming this in the middle of the day.
So yeah, tweaks are a thing.
Tweaks are a thing. I'm still 80% at work. But yeah, at that point, it all becomes about the refinement of it.
Yeah.
You're like 80% of the way there once you have a good deck list, once you have, your expensive stuff all sort of in place. And it's just a matter of figuring out how to work it against the different matchups, what your good matchups are, what your bad ones are, and kind of trying to mitigate the bad ones and anticipate what the good ones are going to have coming at you in response, I feel like.
Yeah. I mean, as newer players, I do think that the sideboard is one of the harder things to be able to grasp, especially for a new player.
It's very tricky.
So when you look at deck lists on not sponsored, but fabdb.net or whatever, you can see all these sideboards, and usually people, if they're really good, will kind of explain what these sideboards are for and what they've noticed and where they kind of put them into play. And so
versus this person subbing these things versus,
And that's a great starting point, especially if you have no idea what to really go off of. And then you can kind of go off of that and then start making your tweaks. But it is the hardest thing to grasp of, like, all right, in my main deck, do I start with 60 cards and then make, like, the most basic way of doing it is starting with 60 cards, having your sideboard of equipment, and then having your sideboard of cards that you'll use against certain heroes, and then being able to find out which cards you swap in with the sideboard.
Exactly. Like take, for example, something like Erase Face.
Yeah.
Very, very powerful against people like Fi or Dromai, who really require, like, links to be draconic in order to get some of those higher level effects. But not so effective against someone, say, like Bravo or like Rhinar, where it doesn't really matter so much whether they're playing generics or brutes or what have you. So at that point, having the Erase Faces just chilling in there, could be good. But if you can take a couple of those out and swap a couple of different things in to really sort of particularly counter them, something that will, increase the amount of resources that it takes to play something, or something that forces them to discard cards that they weren't anticipating or something like that. Like, it's all about that tactical matchup at that point. It becomes very, tactical is the word. It's about putting yourself in the best position possible against a variable opponent in order to, succeed victory.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And so, I think Erase Face is a great example. I think Erase Face is one of the perfect sideboard cards to have.
100%.
Because you're not going to use that for every situation, right? So, for example, in my Fi deck, I have Erase Face in my sideboard, and then I have Yellow Lava Bane loyalties, and I have some Salt the Wounds. Is that what it's called?
Yep.
And so what I do is if I'm running a hero that needs my 3 Erase Faces, I take out 2 Yellow Lava Bane loyalties and 1 Salt the Wounds, put the Erase Face in there. It turns to a new finisher to be able to do that, to be able to play effectively against those decks. And as you're deck building, you really have to think about what your local meta is, right? And that's what makes everyone's deck so unique, is everyone has a specific local meta of what they're going to be fighting. And so, for example, in our meta, we run into a lot of Viserais.
Oh man, Runeblade all the time down here.
Lots of Runeblade, lots of Viserais. So when I'm making a deck, I am making a deck to beat those Runeblades and beat the Viserai. And so my sideboard is going to be for everything else, right? So that's my meta, is I'm trying to out-aggro the other aggro deck. And then the other stuff is like, okay, if I verse this, I'll put this in here. So if it's something that I'm not expecting, like we do have sometimes a wizard player show up, all that stuff, I make sure I respect the wizard, have my arcane barrier in there so I can be able to do that. And then it creates my sideboard. So you really have to think about what your local meta is, and then your sideboard will take care of the other heroes that aren't really something you're going to see prominently. And that will help you be able to get a step up of what that is. Some people think that you should use your sideboard as a secondary deck and change almost every time, where you kind of have your core 54 cards or whatever, and then be able to load up the 6 that are going to really be towards that unique hero, which is also another really viable thing to do in deck building. Like, for example, if you're playing Dramai or playing Fi, or because those are the heroes I'm most familiar with at the moment, and you usually don't run defense reactions with Fi. Like if you run it through a Katsu, you're going to versus a Katsu. It's like, I'm going to put some D reacts in there because they're going to hit me for bigger, and then it will help them draw cards. So I may put a D react in there and take out some other cards and get ready for that. Or I only have 54 cards, be able to throw those D reacts in and take out any cards. Just think about those type of things as well.
Exactly. Like it's a very flexible sort of way to play, and it allows you to take to sort of really dig into the advantages that your deck can pull out in ways that people don't necessarily always see. Which again gets back to sort of the beauty of the game and the deck building, in that you really put your own mark on it. I am a strong advocate of, start at a base point and kind of test it out, like pull it off of the internet or, a YouTube video, a deck tech, something like that, and sort of play with it to understand the mechanics. And then once you have a better grasp of it, start tweaking it, start playing around with it. Yeah. Have a little fun with it. If you think, okay, so this card does X effect, this other card that's not in the deck does Y effect, but it's basically the same thing. This one's just a little bit cheaper. So if you want to, have a tighter resource curve, you swap in a little bit of a cheaper one for the little bit less of an effect, and see if that helps with your momentum. If you can keep the momentum up, then you basically win the game. Yeah. So it's all just a matter of those little tweaks that can be really efficacious when you're put kind of into a corner.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree, and I actually did that with my Dramai deck. The deck list I was kind of go off was you should play Command and Conquer, and I'm like,
no.
As my sideboard is like, I'm playing Dramai. If I have 4 dragons out, Breaking Point will do great. Like it will do the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So I'll just throw a Breaking Point in there. That way I can have that as a finisher, arsenal it, and then be able to play it if I'm able to attack with my dragons if they allow me to. And then it kind of does the same thing. Without having to spend money for Command and Conquer, right?
Exactly, which is like $70 a pop right now, or something like that.
I don't really need that card for the heroes I'm playing, Yeah. So that was something that was really beneficial to me, is kind of thinking of those options, right? So
and then finding the synergies between things in like unexpected ways. Like you and I were playing over this weekend, and you were Dramai and I was Fi, and you came in with this big attack with one of the dragons or something that had Phantasm on it. I didn't have anything in my hand with 6 attacks that would pop the Phantasm, but I did have a God of War and a thing that God of War.
Kratos came out.
Spoilers, Kratos is the new hero in Dynasty.
That'd be nuts. But
that'd be insane, and I would play the heck out of that. But I had an Art of War, and I had a thing with 5 attack. So you play the Art of War, you block with the thing with 5 attack, which one of the effects of Art of War is you can give all of your cards +1 attack and defense for that turn. Pops it up to 6, triggers the Phantasm, turn over. Like finding the little synergies and stuff like that, so that so that it has even just a little bit more flexibility, is super powerful and really key, I feel like, to kind of taking the next step up.
Yep.
Because like when you first start the game, it's just figuring out, what the heck do I do?
Yep.
Like if I pitch this, can I do this? And like, oh no, I'm out of action points and I'm only halfway through what I wanted to accomplish. How do I build in more go again or something like that? Like just the very basic level of things. Then sort of the next tier is figuring out different heroes and sort of what suits your play style. And then above that a little bit even more is deck building. Actually getting the deck to do what you want it to. And then even above that, it's figuring out what the opponent is going to do and kind of working through those options almost like it's chess. You know, a good chess player will see 5-10 moves down the board and be responding to that already. And it's a similar thing here. You have to know kind of what's going to be coming in order to play against it effectively.
Yep.
So once you start sort of doing that and finding all the little different ways that the cards work together, you're really, at that point, you're pushing on that, fourth tier. Basically, you're starting to think more strategically and more long term. Yeah. And that's going to make things just a heck of a lot easier when you start playing up at a higher level.
For sure. And I think the fastest way to be able to get there is just by reps.
Play.
Play a lot. And it's not just reps against. Reps against the hero is going to help you understand your matchup more. But reps with the hero is going to help you understand how to counter it more too. When I see a lot of people near the top or understanding of the top, it's because they can play every hero if you just give them a deck, because they understand those heroes and they've played it before.
How the basic mechanics work, what you can expect to do with it, and like the difference, for example, between like a Bolton and a Dory, like. We're both warriors, so we should do basically the same thing.
One is trash.
One is trash and one is good. But what makes one trash and what makes one good? And those are the sorts of differences that like a total beginner wouldn't necessarily be able to figure out.
Until they try them both out.
Until they try them both out and see, oh, this works really, really well, or this doesn't work very well. Is there a way for me to change that? And then you realize, no, there's not, and you never play Bolton again.
For sure. 100%. 100%. Yeah, that's speaking straight to me because that's the truth.
That's exactly why I said it, Matt, because we have real life examples of that exact thing happening.
I think like a general progression too is like, again, like our podcast is meant for people who are just starting out a lot of the time, but hopefully we can give some nuggets to those who are more experienced too. But as a new player, you start with your one deck and learn it and see if you like the hero. And then I think the natural progression is then find the thing that really jives well with you and then play that hero. Make sure you play that. But then the natural progression is I have the hero I jive with and I do really well and I play it constantly. Then, like, what I'm hitting now is building my second hero out, right?
Yeah.
So, like, could be because those top players have 3 to 4 CC decks, and they really don't know what they're going to play until they are there at the event, and they're like, "This is what I'm going to do," right? And they're great at every single one and have the options and all that stuff. Sounds like an expensive journey, but eventually you'll get there, and it'll be great. It should be fulfilling and all that type of stuff.
100%. And it really does come down to, what makes your heart sing. If you like a particular hero, play that hero. Forget about it. Azalea's got points now, guys. Play the hero that speaks to you.
Yeah.
If you like Azalea, play Azalea. If you like Bolton, play Bolton. If you like Levia, you rock Levia.
Yeah.
Like, do not let, sort of the prevailing opinions influence your decision. Every hero, to some extent, is viable. You just have to find the right way to make it happen.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong there's nothing wrong. I know different people play different ways and people play to win. And so there's nothing wrong with being like, this is the best thing right now. I'm going for it. But right now, with a meta that is so
just wild
that we mentioned in the beginning, like literally right now, it's the perfect time to be able to play the thing you actually really enjoy, your brain enjoys thinking through.
Yep.
Because it's all viable. Azalea is still an argument. It's going to be more of a difficult battle for you, but as we said, it has points. It's doable, and so I think this is the time to really do that for the short amount of span until something broken appears in Dynasty or whatever. But I mean, I think it's really great and healthy, and so right now is the time to pick that hero that really just gets your brain turning in a good way and brings you the most joy.
And like really at this point, I would recommend like having 3 primary heroes, something you can go aggro with, something you can go control with, and something you can go mid-tempo with. And just sort of play with the different heroes, play with the different roles, and kind of see what the matchups look like and where you're comfortable. Maybe even playing aggro this entire time because, it seemed like the right way to go. But you were actually more of like a mid-tempo person. Or maybe even playing a hero as more of a control, but you actually have this, great way to make them more aggro. So, get in there, get your hands dirty, play around with it a little bit. Don't let other people's perceptions or like, well, that's what the meta says or anything like that sort of force you down a particular path. Especially with this game at this time, there's no reason not to do what feels right.
Yep. And so that's kind of the lesson is again, a couple episodes ago, listen to our deck building or listen to the cards and now the sideboard, just make sure you have the equipment for those counters, play your local meta, understand what's happening, and prep for that. Then you worry about the equipment sideboard and then you add those extra cards to be able to go for it. And you're going to have a hero or 3 heroes that are just going to be able to really do well. Have fun out there and do that sideboard stuff. You know?
And always remember to bring Arcane Barrier.
Always.
Every time.
Always. Go buy those singles. Like seriously,
like if the best piece of advice, and this is truly the bottom tier top tip today.
The bottom tier bottom tip.
Go out and just spend like $2 on the full Null Rune set.
You're gonna need it.
Yeah, they're like 30 to 50 cents a pop. Just go spend a couple of bucks, pick them up, because I guarantee you the time will come that you're going to be fighting a Kano or an Icelander or Lord of Briar or a Viserai.
Honestly, Viserai,
and then the Vis is going to produce like 10 Rune Chant or something and just obliterate you unless you have something to block some of that.
Yeah.
So Arcane Barrier.
Get that AB. It's important.
Get that AB,
especially right now. So. Well, guys, pretty short episode, I would say, today, but it was good.
Yeah, I feel pretty good about that one.
Sideboarding's great. Any more words of wisdom before we got to go?
Just, guys, just go out there and have fun. Like we spent a lot of time talking about, the nitty-gritty of things and, like, working with the meta or against the meta or whatever. But ultimately, remember that this is a game. And whether you're spending $2 or $200 or $2,000 on this stuff, whether it's, you're out at the locals every night or you just go to one thing a week or you make it every month or so when you have the time or availability, like, just have fun. If you're not having a good time, then what are you doing?
Yeah. I hope you guys are having fun with us. If you guys want some more bottom tier content, we've been doing some really fun things on our YouTube channel. So go subscribe over there. Check it out. I have to put my plug in.
Have to.
It's good. It's actually real. Literally, I really enjoy the content we put out.
It's turning out pretty good, honestly. I was a little nervous because, never done much YouTube stuff. But I'm really happy with it.
I mean, I'm promising you that it is bottom tier.
Oh, 100%.
But it's
kind of jank, team.
But also, like, it's been really fun because, like, we've been learning not only flesh and blood but editing, and so go check that out. Subscribe. We were sports announcers for this 3-part series we're doing right now. So the other one, 2 of them are out. The other one will drop tomorrow. And we're talking past, future tense. It's really cool, right?
It's kind of confusing.
Podcasts are awesome. Yeah, go check it out. Go subscribe, and again, leave us a review here on all this stuff, and we will see you next time.
We will, in fact. Friends, this has been Greg.
This has been Matt.
And we are the bottom tier. Everybody, just have a phenomenal rest of your day, and thank you so much for being here.